All right, thank you, Karen.
Sure, thanks.
All right, everybody can see my screen now. All right, so the URL for the TestUs admin panel is testus.hehtech.io/admin. And you don't have to remember all of this. We're going to send this out into the Slack channels, which you all, I believe, have been invited to. If you haven't, at the end of this call, you can send me your email address and I will invite you. So this is the admin panel. Yours is going to look slightly different than mine, but everything that we're going to go over today will be the same as what you will see when you join the study. So first, you'll see this is where all of the participant data is. And right now, what we're looking at is what's called the stage site. So this is the practice site, which you will all be using at first until we actually start enrolling live participants. And then that will be the production site, which will look the exact same. It'll just have a slightly different URL. Instead of having hehtech.io up here, it will be eurekaplatform.org. So all of this information here is all fake data that we use for testing. So you can click around, do whatever you want in here. There's no actual real data, so you don't have to worry about any PHI or accidentally deleting information or putting wrong information in. This is an environment that doesn't have any real data. So we'll just look at a recently created participant. If you go in here, you will have their basic info, which will have their email address as well as a phone number if they have it, any consents that they have signed for TestUs. In the activity tab, you'll see any activity that this participant has gone through already. And you don't have to worry too much about this. We're going to go in a lot more depth later. Messages will be any messages that are available to that participant. There's nothing in health data or notes. Really, the most important ones are going to be coordinator forms. Now, the coordinator forms are where you as a coordinator are going to enter in participant information. So there's a bunch of different categories of these coordinator forms where you would like assign a test assignment, where you would collect information about standard test sample collection and research test sample collection, as well as a few more. So we'll go into those in a little bit more detail. And then coordinator proxy data entry. This is a tab that you probably will not use very frequently, but this is where you can actually enter in information on behalf of a participant. So if for some reason a participant is unable to answer surveys on their own, let's say they have a medical condition and they are not really able to interact with the platform, you can ask their surveys kind of interview style and then fill in the information here. So just to show you an example of that, this would be a survey that should be participant facing. So you'd ask them, what is your height? And then you would fill in all this information on behalf of the participant. All right, so that is the participant tab. That is going to be really what you're going to be using the most. So we will stick with that for now. So to enroll a participant, we have two ways of doing so. We have a web platform as well as a mobile platform. So I'm going to also share my iPhone screen here so we can see that. Give me one moment. There we go. All right. Everybody can see that now, correct? All right, so enrolling a participant, we will start with the web platform. So the site for that is testus.hehtech.io. So that is the URL that a participant would use to sign up for TestUs, but they would also need a study key. So this is going to be different for each site. So for the Kansas site, the study key is Bacani. You type that in, it'll go here, and you'll notice that slash Bacani gets switched into this what's called an RFK code. You don't need to worry about this whole line of gibberish here, but that's just what the system knows as Bacani. If you are at the Genesis site, the key will be Genesis. And I'll let you know all these different codes, but it's Genesis, West Fork, Broadway, and Great River. And then for Kansas, it is Bacani. So we will just use Bacani for right now. You'll see it turns into this RFK code. And so the participant would see all of this, click on join the study. And here's some information about the study. We won't read through all of this right now. That is for the participant. And they will scroll down here and say get started. So here we are going to type in information. When you're doing this, so everybody who's going to be using Eureka is going to be making some practice accounts on this stage site before you actually deal with real participants. So this is what you would be doing. So I'm going to make this Dylan Connie Webb and just make up a fake birth date. Make up a fake email address. We'll say our password is password. And join Eureka. And here they will be prompted to add a cell phone number. A cell phone number can only be in the Eureka system once. So while you're testing, I would recommend you just click I don't have a cell phone, because it is going to send a confirmation text to you and you'll need to confirm. So you can't just enter in any fake information there. We'll just hit next. It's going to ask, this is the eligibility survey. So at first it's asking language preference. We do have most of the content translated into Spanish. Currently, we don't have the consent, but we hope to have that consent translated very soon. But anyway, we're going to click English for right now. It says, if requested, are you willing to come into a testing center near you? Say yes. Are you willing to answer short survey questions about your health and background? Yes. And then we'll click submit. If they click anything besides yes for these two questions, they will be deemed ineligible and will not be able to participate in Test Us. All right, so great, they're eligible. Let's get started.
Dylan, I have a quick question.
Sure.
This is Prong. If somebody in the process of checking eligibility presses the wrong button by mistake and submits it, and the system tells them they're ineligible, can they go back and redo the eligibility check?
They will not be able to go back and redo the eligibility check. If that occurs, the best thing to do is just have them make a new Eureka account and do the process over again. And then we would also want to mark their other Eureka account as a test user. If that does ever happen, you can just reach out to us and we will help you out with that. We don't need to get into that kind of detail right now, but that is a great point, and it definitely probably will happen at your site at least once. So if that ever does happen, just have them create a new Eureka account. They will have to have a unique email address for signing up. So keep that in mind.
So they'll need a different email and cell phone number if they want to put in a cell phone number.
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And that's another thing, we can actually remove their cell phone number from the system. So if they're signing up via mobile, because they will need a cell phone number if they sign up on the mobile app, reach out to us and we'll help you figure that out. Great question. All right, so next up after eligibility is the DocuSign for consent. So this is just kind of the pre-DocuSign page, letting them know what they're about to do. We'll go to continue to document. They will have to click this button up here saying that they agree to use electronic records and signatures. Click continue. They will read through this consent very carefully and then come down to the bottom Click on finish, and it's just a checkbox for their signature. Make sure their name comes up correctly, today's date. Click finish. And now they're finished. So real quick, I want to show you this on the mobile platform. So give me one moment. It's a very similar process, but there's a couple slight differences. So we're just going to show you that whole process here as well. All right. So this is what, if they download the Eureka app, this is what they will see. So what they would do is, I know you can't see what my fingers are doing here, but I'll try and show you with my cursor. They'll click enter a study key, and very similar to that /Bakani for the web platform, this is the exact same thing. So it would be, the study key would be Bakani, or it would be West Fork. Oops. West Fork, so we'll use that for this one. All right, here's the study. Tells a little bit information. They're going to say learn more. And here is where they would either sign up or log in. It's probably not going to happen very frequently that you'll have somebody who has already been part of a Eureka study in the past. So most likely they're just going to be signing up. So we're going to click sign up. We're going to say my name is Dylan, West Fork Mobile. Oops. Hit next, put in a birth date. We're going to say 12/12/1955. Next, email address, dylan.low 010 plus. Hit next. So here we're going to put in a mobile phone number. I'm going to use my own phone number because I have already removed it from the system. So I should be able to use it. And see, here's where they're going to have a confirmation code. So that's why it has to be a working phone that receives text messages that they have on them. So like if you're in the clinic and they have a phone number, but they don't actually have that phone with them at the time, they wouldn't be able to sign up using that number. So just keep that in mind. All right, and here, excuse me, a little bit more information about the test us study. They're gonna say, sounds good, I'm in. And here we get to the eligibility survey. So you see this is a little bit different than how it showed up on web. So each question will be on its own page. If requests, are you willing to come into a testing center? We're gonna say yes. Are you willing to answer short survey questions about your health and background? Yes. All right, they're eligible, so continue. This should bring us to the pre-DocuSign page once it is ready. And just like before, they will need to agree to use electronic records and signatures. Yes, agree. Start, next, next, next. As they read through this. And then just like before, they'll click that checkbox, hit finish. And now they are consented in the study. All right, so now we are at the same point in the study for the mobile user as well as the web user. So you just see it's a slightly different interface here. If you click here, it'll show you all of the upcoming surveys that this participant is going to do. So before we get into that, I want to go back to the admin panel and take a look at these participants. Refresh. So here are two participants, Dylan Bakani Web and Dylan West Fork Mobile. We're gonna, excuse me, look at the participant that we created on web. So if we come in here, we'll see that email address I put in. I did not enter a phone number, and we have that consent that I have signed. And if you wanted to, you could click download and take a look at that consent, make sure it is signed properly. If we go over to activity, we'll see that we have eVisit 1. That is what we were just looking at with the baseline data. And you'll see that there's no check marks or anything next to any of these yet because we have not actually completed that at this time. So why don't we go ahead and do that? So your demographics, let's take the survey. We're just gonna put in some fake information here, 5 feet, 5 inches. And remember, this is what the participant will be doing. So what we see on this screen is what the participant is looking at. 222. So I'm not going to read through all these questions very carefully. When you do your testing, you should definitely check and make sure that you understand all these questions and everything is clear. So ask about racial background. Next question is about ethnicity. So are you of Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin or ancestry?
Yeah, Dylan, I have a question. This is Barcy. If they put in like something that's really an outlier for height or weight, does the system flag that in any way? Or they could put in that they're, 100 feet tall and weigh 2 pounds?
Yeah, we do not have any kind of validation to make sure that the information put in is correct. So hopefully that does not occur, but no, there's no validation within the system to make sure that the data is makes sense.
Right. So a severe outlier will not be flagged. It'll just be entered as garbage, turn out to be garbage data.
Yeah, I think that's
okay.
That's right. Yep. So we're gonna say yes, Puerto Rican. Next, we would like to know what you are doing for work. We're gonna say we are working now. Currently enrolled in school. I'm gonna say no. I have a bachelor's degree. So the next questions are gonna be about insurance. There's quite a few different insurance questions here. So they'll have to go through. I'm gonna say covered and not covered for any of these other ones. Again, please read through this and make sure that all of these kind of make sense to you. Last question will be, how confident are you filling out the medical forms by yourself? I'm going to say extremely and click submit. So we are done with that first baseline survey. If we go back to the admin panel, we can see this in real time. If we come back to baseline data, we'll see your demographics is done. And the next one open to them is your tobacco history. So they will click let's go. And this survey is actually optional. It does not appear to be optional here, but they could just click submit and they will bypass without entering any information. But we will say this person does not use any tobacco or nicotine products. Next one will be alcohol use. How often do you have a drink containing alcohol in the past year? I'm going to say monthly or less. It'll have some extra additional questions based on that answer. How many drinks containing alcohol do you have in a typical day while you were drinking? We're going to say 1 to 2. How often did you have 6 or more drinks on one occasion in the past year? We're going to say never and hit submit. All right, next up is your COVID-19 experience. So first question, have you ever been tested for the novel coronavirus, the virus that causes COVID-19? Either a test to detect the virus, active infection, or antibody to detect past infection. So we're going to say yes. We're going to say this person had both kinds of tests. How many weeks ago was your active COVID-19 infection? We're going to say that was this week. How many weeks ago was your past test for your past infection? We're going to say that was 4 weeks ago. We're going to say so next question is, do you know the result of your test for the active COVID-19 infection? I'm going to say no, not yet. I didn't get those results yet. Do you know the result of your past infection? We're going to say yes, negative for antibodies. In the past 2 weeks, have you been in close contact within 6 feet or more than 5 minutes with anybody who has tested positive? We're going to say no. In the past 48 hours, have you had any of the following? We're going to say scratchy throat. You'll see when you click scratchy throat, you get this follow-up question. Did you seek medical care for these symptoms? I'm going to say no. How many days ago did the symptoms start? We're going to say 4 days ago. In the past 48 hours, has anyone in your household had any of these symptoms? We're going to say no. In the past 48 hours, how many people outside of your household did you interact with while they were within 6 feet? We're going to say 2 people. And when you do that, it's going to add another question. How many of those people were wearing masks or behind a shield? We're going to say both of them were. Any questions so far about these surveys? Going smoothly.
Is there an option, like on most of our IRB materials, people have the option to not answer a question if they choose not to? Are they allowed to skip? You mentioned just the tobacco, that they could skip if they really didn't want to. If they don't want to answer something about their past COVID, are they forced to put an answer?
They will need to select an answer choice for most questions. So for the tobacco and alcohol, those are optional. They can bypass that. There is also, if you selected that the person was a female, then there's a pregnancy question, and that is also optional. And then actually in this survey, there are a couple optional questions at the very end, which are these 2 questions.
Are you going to put optional by those ones that are optional then? Or you're, because how will the subject know if it's really?
The language of these questions was very tightly regulated by the NIH, and they request that we remove the optional tag. So it was there at one point. It is no longer there per the NIH requirements.
So we could have our RAs, as they're going through this with people, say, you know, that particular question is optional if you don't want to answer it.
Yes,
Okay.
that's fine from our perspective, but all the other questions will need some answer choice. So if they didn't want to answer these medical conditions, they could probably just say don't know for all of them, and that's very similar to not answering them. But from our perspective, it will not let you go any further if you do not select an answer for this question. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right. So your medical conditions, we're just going to say that this person does not have any medical conditions. So we're going to click no for all of these, just for the sake of time. And we're going to say that this participant does not want to answer this question, so we're not going to answer that. But for this one, do you have any serious physical or mental conditions that would limit your ability to perform daily activities? If they click yes, they are going to get some more questions about that here. So just be aware of that. All right, and like I said, we're not going to answer that question. Click submit. All right, so next up is medications. Here is where the participant could add any medications that they are currently taking. So this is pretty straightforward, but let's just say they're taking ibuprofen, oral pill, true to strength, say 800 mg tab. How often do you take it? We're going to say 1 tab every 6 hours. Say yes, save. All right, and if that's it, then they would go to save and continue. If they had another medication, they would just enter in another one. Say save and continue.
Is this question required? I mean, there's some of our patients that have 10 medications, and to put the med, the dose, the frequency, that's gonna take quite a bit of time.
They are able to bypass that. If they were to just say save and continue, they would be able to get through that without entering any medications in there.
Is there some thought that particular medications might interfere with the PCR test?
Not to my knowledge. I think
I'm just wondering why that's even there, unless, just complex. It's anyway, I'm glad they can skip it, because I'm not sure it has relevance to the science.
Mm-hmm. I think it's more about thorough data collection and just having, the more information, the better. But like I said, they are able to bypass that question.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of this stuff with our other RADx up grant. In fact, I don't know if anybody else is tuned into that whole community of projects, but there's been a lot of consternation about how many questions and the required questions. And so we actually probably are lucky here compared to what we're seeing on that other stuff.
Yeah, great. Thanks for the input. Yeah, a lot of this is requirements from the NIH and just trying to gather as much information as we can. It's hard to imagine why medications is needed now, but who knows what we might find out a year from now where maybe that information could be useful. So easier to collect the information now than to try to go back and get it later. So anyway, next up is the shipping address activity. We're going to say, let's go. And we're just going to make up some information here right now, but hopefully the participant would put in their actual information. Say this is city, San Francisco. And next up is next steps. And does this contact information all look right for Bakani? Might as well verify while we're here. This contact information will be different depending on which site it is. So West Fork will have the West Fork contact info. Genesis will have Genesis. So we're gonna click submit. All right, so now the participant gets to this page where it says you're all good for now. So let's go back to the admin panel. We're gonna refresh this.
Hey, Dylan, I have another question. So
Sure.
have you found any participants finding difficulty with the word shipping address as opposed to what's your address? Like, I just feel like shipping address just sounds weird to me.
So
like we're going to be using that to mail checks to them. So what we really want is their home, wherever they get their US mail.
Mm-hmm. I think that is part of the reason why they use shipping address rather than address, because if people have like a PO box, they would want to enter in a PO box number there. I believe, I don't know if anybody from UMass has anything they want to add about that.
Yeah, I think shipping or mailing address makes sense. I don't know if mailing would be more specific or if that's even possible to change, but that works.
Yeah. But
I don't think anybody over here at UMass has really had any trouble with participants with the shipping. I think we just said, we just want to make sure that you enter your accurate shipping address so we can make sure that you get your compensation properly. And they usually like, oh yeah, I'll make sure I'll put it in.
Okay, great. All right, so back to, now we're again looking at the admin panel. So this is what you as a coordinator will be seeing. And we'll see that this person has their eVisit 1 completed. Shows here, green check marks all up and down. Except you will see here, this is just an internal thing with Eureka is that the shipping address activity is different for mobile and web. So we show both here, and depending on if they signed up via web, it'll have a green check mark here and an X here, or if they signed up via mobile, it'll have a green check mark here and a red X here. So I know nobody likes to see those red X's, but that's just how it is right now. We're working on trying to merging these two activities so that it won't show up twice. But for the meantime, you are going to see one X here, depending on how they signed up.
Dylan, this is Kate Toma from Iowa. Just can you clarify again? So on this checklist, medications is the only one not required. So you could have a red checkbox there and still get through it. Is that correct?
Not exactly. So they will, even if they just clicked save and continue without entering a medication, it'll still come up as a green check mark here.
And which of them are not required other than meds? Is there any other one?
The alcohol use and your tobacco history. But even if they just bypass it without answering anything, it will still show up as a green check mark here.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
the
Thank
only
you.
red X you should ever see is just on a shipping address activity, and you should only see one.
Thanks.
Yep, no problem. Great question. All right. So let's say this participant signed up in your clinic. They came in for a COVID test. You asked, hey, do you want to participate and test us? They said yes. So they signed up. They went through all that baseline activity. So now they're stuck. Like they have nowhere to go at this point. So now it's going to depend on the coordinator to come in to coordinator forums. And now this is really where it's your time to shine. So first you have to go into the eligibility coordinator form. This is just a check to make sure that you as the coordinator have confirmed that they are in fact eligible. So the participant has already done their eligibility questionnaire. Now you are just verifying that that is all correct. So is the participant willing to answer questions about any symptom and exposure to anyone with COVID in the last 2 weeks? We're going to say yes. Is the participant 18 years or older? We're going to say yes. And is the participant willing and able to give a minimum of 2 samples, a nasal swab and at least 1 saliva sample? We're going to say yes. And it shows this participant is eligible. If you clicked no for any of these, it's going to say ineligible. That does not prevent anything from happening within Eureka. So it is your job as the coordinator that if they answered no to any of these, that you do not proceed any further in this study. Does that make sense? You should have already had this discussion with the participant before they even signed up. So you should know that this is all yes, but just want to make sure that's all good. So we'll say submit. If you come down here, we'll say that that is checked off, green check mark, great. It says started by and submitted by me. It has the time here. This time I believe is in UTC, so the timing might not really look right to you. It's probably gonna be off by, I think it's 8 hours for Central Time. But you'll notice that the minutes and seconds is correct. So anyway, and then once it is submitted, you're not able to go back and do anything to that form. So I can click all over here and it's not going to do anything. So really with all of these coordinator forms, make sure that the data is complete and it is accurate before you submit anything. All right, so great. So eligibility is done. Next is pre-sample collection. First one is test assignment coordinator form. So we're going to click here. You're going to say, yes, this is the right participant. This is the survey we want to fill out. Confirm. All right, so have you checked inclusion exclusion criteria? We're going to say yes. That's what we just did. Have you confirmed that all baseline surveys have been completed by the participant? If not, please exit this form and return when eVisit 1 is completed. So if you are recruiting somebody in the clinic, most likely you're going to be watching them go through all this, so you would know that they are finished. But if you're not 100% sure, I would tell you to go back, go to this person's activity, and make sure that that eVisit 1 is completed. Because once you submit this form that we're about to do, anything that they have not finished in this eVisit, they will never be able to go back and complete. So it'll just lead to missing data. So if they have only gotten through to the alcohol use survey and you submit that form, all of these questions will not be sent to them. So just make sure that you are doing that in the correct order. And you'll notice here that that little arrow turned into a half-filled circle. So that means that this coordinator form has been started before, but not submitted. So we can click on that and go back, and you'll see it saved my answer from before. Now we're going to say, yes, eVisit 1 is complete. Do you have a testing assignment number for a standard and experimental test? We're going to say yes. What is the standard testing assignment number? And this is actually going to be a great place to stop for a second and ask, do we know what Kansas's standard test is yet? Anybody from Kansas or
Yes,
Victor?
it should be an Abbott test, but we're actually still clarifying some stuff on there.
Okay, great. So we will need that information before we can have you start enrolling participants, because we're going to need to add that to this drop-down list here. So I just want to kind of put that on your radar to, as soon as that is finalized, let us know so we can add that to this list. But let's pretend that you are using the Quest Roche Cobas from Marlboro. So click on that. What is the research testing assignment number? So the device that we are all using is 2322. So we're going to click on that and hit submit. And this is going to be another pop-up to have you ensure that all baseline surveys have been completed. And again, if you are not 100% sure, say no, take me back, go check, and then come back and submit. But since we just did that, I'm going to say yes, eVisit 1 is complete.
Dylan, since all 4 Iowa sites are using the Roche Cobas Marlboro and we're all in the 2322, can that just be filled in by Eureka so there's no errors in the drop-down choice selection?
No, unfortunately, that is a workflow that we need to keep consistent. There's kind of multiple reasons why, but no, we would not be able to like automatically fill that in. And part of that reason is now, if we go to activity for this participant, now we see this new eVisit 2 has opened here. And you'll see red X's next to these devices, which are not assigned to this participant. But if you look at research test 2322, they do have a couple activities there. So that's part of the reason why we need this selection here, and it can't be automated through the system because this is like a breakpoint for the participant. So anyway, so back to the participant facing survey here. If they click refresh, then all of a sudden now they have new activities ready for them to do. So your upcoming COVID-19 test at Bacani McKinney, take the survey. This is the instructions. Research coordinator will be in contact with you if they haven't reached out already. A lot of the times they're going to be at the clinic already, so this isn't too important for them. Also has the contact information, so they will go ahead and click submit. And next up is the consent to receive a COVID-19 research test. So this is where they're actually consenting to do the 2322 device study. They've already signed a consent very early on to participate and test us, but now they're actually consenting to doing this specific device study. So it's a really important step here. Give permission through DocuSign. Continue, and you'll see this is project 2322, and all of this language is going to be specific to the 2322 device. They're going to click yes, finish. All right, and next up, see you soon. Again, test 2322, see you soon. Most likely they're already going to be at the clinic, but they'll still hit submit. And now there's nothing left for the participants to do at the moment. So now they've already, when they signed up for Eureka, they signed the initial consent. We call it that the master consent to join the TESA study and allow us to gather information via those baseline surveys. Now they just sign the device-specific consent, which gives us, which is them consenting to us collecting research samples. So now we can actually go ahead with collecting samples. So back to the admin panel, I'm just gonna hit refresh and we will see that this is completed. Green check marks all up and down here. So we are good to go. So we'll go back to the coordinator forms and we will go to sample collection. And so one thing I just want to point out here is most of these coordinator forms are more or less in the order that they're going to be filled out during the workflow. So that will kind of make things easier for you. And one thing I forgot to notice before is we do have these little tags and these cursor tags here. So these little exclamation points are going to be on the coordinator forms that are like really important, whether they have activity or in this case, you really need to make sure that both consents have been signed before you take any research test sample collections. So anyway, just you can look through that while you're doing your testing and see what all these mean. Should make a lot more sense once you actually go through this on your own. But anyway, back to this participant, they have signed their second consent, so they are ready for sample collection. So the first form that they will fill out, or that you will fill out as a coordinator, is the standard test order coordinator form. Come through here, yes, that is a participant, that's the survey we want to do. All right, so what is the accession number? Right now, I am just going to put in fake information, specimen ID, ordering provider's name. So this was Connie, so this would be Dr. Connie. Is there an E? There's two E's, okay, just wanna make sure. What is the NPI? You should all know this information. I'm gonna put in some fake information there. What is the ordering provider zip code? I'm gonna say 60116. I don't know if that's right, but again, for this, what we're doing right now, this is all fake information, so it's okay that this isn't correct, but when you're doing this on production, obviously this needs to be the right information. So if you don't know, like when you're going through your testing, you should know what information you're gonna be putting in here. But we're gonna put submit. And we'll see that is checked off. So we have put in the information about ordering the standard test. So now we're going to go in and do the standard test sample collection. Now, the workflow that you're doing on the ground is, you'll need to figure that out. And I think UMass can probably help if you don't already have an SOP in place. But I believe UMass mostly does this as like two coordinators working together, where one coordinator is actually taking the samples and the other coordinator is using like an iPad or a laptop to enter in all this information. I don't know how your sites will be doing this, but that seems to be the best way if you do have the staff to have two people per participant.
Where do we get the accession number and the other number you talked about? It was like a few screens back.
That's a good question for UMass. And actually, before I answer, I'll let either Anne or Kim Judy take that.
If you're using Quest, you won't have access to that information. So you put in NA, but some sites have been using their own lab. And then the way that they fill out their like orders, they have a specific like serial number that's connected to it outside of Eureka. So that's the information available to put in. But for the most part, if you're using Quest, it's always NA and you won't have that information to put.
Yeah.
So those two boxes will be blank then. The accession number.
You'll have to put in NA. You'll have to put
NA.
in there, else it won't let
Okay.
you submit. But yeah, just make sure everybody is on the same page and handling those questions the same at your site. Thanks for that. Great question. All right, so next, like I said, the test sample collection coordinator form. So please enter the name of the research staff who observed or performed the collection. We're going to say that was me. What is the standard testing assignment number? As we said before, we were doing the Quest Roche Cobas. Serial number associated with the standard test. Great point of what we just said earlier. This could be an A, or you might have a serial number. It's going to depend on your site. And was a sample collection successful? If for some reason it was not successful, you'd click no and indicate why it was not successful. But that almost never happens. So we're going to say yes. At what date and time was the standard test sample collected? We're going to say it was today. And like I said, if you have two coordinators doing this and you're filling this form out as you're collecting the samples, you would just hit now and it would automatically fill in the current time and hit done. The test sample collection was performed by, most often this is study staff. Sample collection method of the standard test was, I believe, doing midterm. What was the sample collection location? We're going to say both. Are there any concerns about this test sample collection? If you click no, you would just submit. If you click yes, it's going to explain your concerns. We don't need to fill that in right now though. So we'll just say no, submit. And now that form is done. And again, I cannot go back there. So if you're unsure about answers or you don't have all the information, do not hit submit because you will not be able to go back and edit it later. So next up is the research test sample collection coordinator form. Say yes, confirm. All right, please enter the name of the research staff. We're going to say that was me again. What is the research testing assignment number? 2322. What is the identification number? We're going to say NA.
Yeah, so for this one, it's actually going to be a 6-digit, and it's going to be on a sticker on the matching test there. So you will have to put in a number for 2322.
All right. 6-digit number. Was the sample collection successful? If this device requires multiple sample types, was at least one sample type collected? So if I remember right, 2322 is 2 saliva samples. Is that right?
Yes.
All right.
And can I just clarify, that's the microgem test ID, the card that comes with the stickers. It's
So-
the ID that's on the sticker that comes with the kit. And
That,
each
that's,
Yep, go ahead.
so that the stick, where the 3 stickers are, the number from that is what goes into the research test?
Yes, yeah, that's so the company can pair up the second saliva sample with the participant with the Eureka ID.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Great, thanks for that. All right, so was sample collection successful? We're going to say yes. Research test sample collection methods. It is saliva, and we'll see we get these questions. If we clicked anterior nares, it's also going to ask questions about anterior nares, but that is not relevant for this study. So just saliva. Saliva sample was performed by, I think this is always going to be participant. I don't think study staff would be collecting saliva samples. At what
Correct.
date and time was the saliva sample collected? Again, we're going to say now. Please explain any concerns. If there's no concerns, just click NA, or if you say dry mouth, anything you put here, just little notes about the sample collection, and hit submit. And now that is done. So 2322 is a little bit different than our previous studies in that we have 2 different saliva sample collections. So this is a little bit strange workflow here to handle that. So you're gonna have to remember, after you document that first sample collection, you're gonna come down here to the 2322 specific forms and fill out this coordinator form for the second saliva sample. Click those, confirm, enter the name of the research staff. We're gonna say it was me again. What is the research testing assignment number? 2322.
Oh,
identification.
Dylan, could I just say one quick thing while I'm thinking of it?
Sure.
Is where you see where he entered his name. You just want to make sure that you're putting your full name and not just your first name, just so that we can, there's always an audit trail to know who specifically entered the information. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Anne. What was the second saliva? Was the second saliva collection successful? Yes. Again, participant, it was done right now. And we're gonna say no concerns. All right, so now we have collected the standard research test sample. We have collected the research test sample. So at this point, the participant would be done with their in-person visit. So we would go ahead and click here. Yes, both study consents have been completed. Again, if you're not sure about this, just take an extra second, click back and make sure that both consents have been completed. We'll just do that right now, actually. So we'll go back to this person's basic info and we have both consents here signed. So this is a 2322 consent and this one here is just the master consent. So, all right, we have it.
Dylan, would it actually let you get farther if they both were not there?
Yes, it would. So that's why it is really important for the coordinator to double check and make sure that these consents, like I said, if you're enrolling participants on site, you'll be kind of doing this whole process with them. So you'll know that they're doing it right. But it's always a good idea just to double check. Maybe something went wrong where they thought they clicked a box or there was a DocuSign error and for some reason that it didn't get collected. That's never really happened before, but there just are times where something goes wrong, something gets skipped by accident and a consent doesn't get signed. So it's always just a good practice to double check that before you let them leave the clinic. That make sense?
Dylan, another quick question. Can you scroll, what is the drop down for that second saliva form again? It's under the, okay, thank you.
Specific forms, yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Will you be able to complete the in-person visit complete coordinator form without completing the specific saliva form at the bottom?
Yes, you would be able to. So that's another, I mean, you should know your workflow is collecting 2 saliva samples. So when you fill out that first form, you should kind of like remember like, oh yeah, there's a second saliva sample that we're collecting, which means you need to document that in here. So that will just require the coordinators to be on top of that and remembering that there are 2 saliva samples. All right, so yes, both study consents have been completed. Has test collection been completed? Yes. The participant's in-person visit is complete. Submit. One more double check. Have you made sure that all the consents are signed? We're gonna say yes. All right, so from the participant's point of view, their study is over. They can leave the clinic, go home, and they're pretty much done with their in-person visit. What that does, oops, is if we go back to their activity tab, we'll see eVisit 2 is complete, and now they have a new eVisit 3. And part of that is the results received. And we'll go into the participant-facing view to see what those look like. So,
Dylan, this is Kate from Iowa again. So there are no, just to follow up on Prong's question too. So there is not a hard stop if we haven't, again, entered the order for the second sample. Is there a way for us to go back if we?
Yeah. So that's a great question. So if you did forget to do that second coordinator form, like as you were doing this, you can go back and fill that out at any time. It will not close out that form. So
okay.
If this was, let's say 2 days later and you realize, oh, I forgot to do this, you could still come back and fill out this form. Obviously it's better to do, at the right time, but it is still there. Yeah. none of these coordinator forms will ever be closed out to the coordinator until they're submitted, then they're closed out.
But the second saliva collection is actually optional. I mean, ideally you want it, but it is optional.
And if that's the case and they decide not to do it, I believe you should still fill out the form and say that the collection was not successful. And then it won't ask you any of those follow-up questions about, let me just double check and make sure that's how that works. So we're going to go to our other test user that I created on mobile and just double check that. So let's say this participant did not want to fill out. Let's see. Dylan Lowe, 2322. Their ID here, and then you say no. Participant chose not to have a test and hit submit. Anyway, so that was the other participant. We can kind of ignore that for now. So back to this participant that we were working with. So they had this eVisit 3, and this is what they will be sent. Survey how to expect your results. It will take this survey. The study team will be providing the results of your standard test. The results can take more than a week to receive back. They would hit submit. And then the next one is, I have received my test results. So if they see this and they have not received their test results yet, they would just not click anything, close the app, and that's it. But once they have done it, they will click yes, hit submit. And at this point, the participant is 100% done with their test of study. There's nothing left for them to do. Any questions so far? We have just a little bit more of the coordinator activities to go through, but any questions about the participants' experience? All right. So back to our admin panel, coordinator forms. So we've done the so this contact attempt or appointment made coordinator form. I can just show you that real quick. This would have been filled out very early on. And is UMass using this at their community events? Or
Yeah,
sorry.
we're still using it, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
even if they're in person.
Okay. And I think part of the reason there is to put the participant preferred language. So I'm sorry for skipping over this. This should have been done right after the test assignment. Did you make contact with the participant about next steps? Yes, an in-person appointment was scheduled, and we're going to say that was scheduled for today, right now, and submit. So apologize for that. So again, eligibility is done, pre-sample collection is done, sample collection is done. So now these forms are going to be filled out later. So all of the forms that we've already looked at will probably be filled out on the same day that the participant is getting their samples collected. The rest of the forms will be filled out at a later date. So compensation, this is going to depend on your site and how you're handling compensation, but you will record that information here. So you might be giving out gift cards on site, in which case you would probably just fill this out same day. If you are mailing out gift cards, this might be done in batches weeks later. So that will be up to your site. We won't go through just for the sake of time. We have 25 minutes left and I want to leave some time for questions, but pretty straightforward. Coordinator form. The next one is for logging the research results. How quickly do the results come back for 2322? And do you know?
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, it is okay. So this will probably be filled out the same day as well. Other devices that we've used could take a week to get the results back. So, it differs depending on device, but that's great. So name of the operator, let's say it was me. Was I able to run the test? Yes. Do you have the result? Yes. What is the date and time? You say I'm doing this right. Excuse me, at the same time. So I click now. We're gonna say that this came back as positive. Did you encounter any problems using the test device? No. Encounter any problems interpreting? No. What was the date and time the investigator was notified of the positive result? We're gonna say I told the investigator right now. What was the name? We're gonna say this is Dr. Did the investigator confirm receipt of the positive test? Yes. At what date and time did the investigator confirm the receipt? We're gonna say that was right now. Which research staff member is responsible for investigator notification? Say it was me. Does this device report multiple test sub-results? No, it does not. And we are good to go there. All right, so that was the research result. Now it's the standard results. So we have the standard result coordinator form. Do you have the results of the test? Yes. What were the date and time? We're gonna say now. What was the result? We're gonna say this came back negative for the standard test, and we will just hit submit. So that brings us into tiebreakers, which for tiebreakers, it is only ordered if the research test comes back positive, but the standard comes back negative, then a research test is, or a tiebreaker test is ordered. And all of that would be down here. The forms are very similar to the standard test. Sorry.
That is actually going to be changing when the ISP is approved. It's going to be two-way.
It's going to be any kind of discordant results will be a tiebreaker.
Yeah, just not inconclusive ones. That's not going to count as a tiebreaker, but just positive or negative opposite between the standard and the novel.
Okay.
But by the time they get the devices, that should be IRB approved. I'm sorry, what was that?
It's going to be that soon. Okay, great. So any discordant results, forget what I just said, will require a tiebreaker test. These forms are all down here. Like I said, they're very similar to the standard test, so we won't go through all of them right now. Anyway, so standard result coordinator form was completed. Detailed standard result coordinator form, I'm going to show you what that looks like. If you're using Quest, you're not going to be using this form at all, so you can ignore it. But if you're using any other standard test that gives you some of this information, you would want to go in here and check. So whether it's CT value, t-testing result. Like I said, if you're using Quest, you will not have this. If you're using a different standard, you might. So I would just check with your PI and see if you'll need to fill out that form or not. Next is this.
Dylan, or maybe somebody from Massachusetts can help me understand this, but the tiebreakers, why is there any need for our coordinators to deal with that in any way? Because Roche or whatever will be running the tiebreaker, or whatever the other company is. Like, I don't understand why our coordinators would be going in and dealing with that.
Well, it's because your participants, that you're going to be the ones entering the data. So you're the ones going to know right away what you're going to be getting that information first. Like, we're not going to be going and looking at those results from UMass. That'll be each site's responsibility. So you're going to see the Quest, for Iowa, you're going to get the Quest results the next day. You're going to have the novel results that day. So then you're going to compare and see, oh, they're opposite. The novel's positive, the standard is negative. So you're going to initiate the tiebreaker on your side. And if it was opposite, then you would do the same thing. But that's not something that we keep track of. I mean, we will look at it, but it's not what we've done in the past.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. All right, so moving on to the next one is a standard result contact attempt coordinator form. This form, just FYI, might be changing in the near future, but for now, I'll just go over it as is. If it does change. Sorry,
I
go ahead.
I have a question. So we are contacting patients even with this, the Quest result, the standard result?
Yes, yes, your site will be responsible for contacting the participants. And that should be kind of worked out between your site, but I believe UMass, if it's a negative result, then the study coordinator can contact, but if a positive result, then PI needs to make the contact. Is that right, Anne?
Yes, yeah.
And who's contacting our public health? Is that us as well, or does Quest?
In your case, it's Quest.
Okay.
All right, great questions. So what was the test result? So this is asking about the standard result. So if you have discordant results, this would be what the standard test result is. And that would be positive for, no, I think we said that was negative. Has contact attempt been made to deliver the standard test results? We are going to say yes. When? We're going to say, I just did it right now. I tried calling, but they did not answer the phone. So, so at this point, this is about attempting to contact the participant. So if I made one contact and was not successful, I would enter in all this information and then just hit back. And then, you know, maybe the next day I try to contact them again. I would come back in, go to that form again. Hit confirm. And now I do a second attempt. So has a second attempt been made? When was it made? Say just now. I called them again, and let's say it was successful. So if it was successful, I would go in and hit submit. So do not submit this form until successful contact with the patient. So again, this is, you know, could be used 3 or 4 times before you actually get successful contact. But once you hit submit, you cannot edit this document anymore. So don't actually submit it until you have made contact. Hit submit. Yes, the participant has received their results. And then you would finally go in and just record the successful contact. So here. Did you successfully deliver the standard test results to the participant? Yes, I did. That was via phone. It was me. And when, we're gonna say it was just now, and hit submit. All right, so those are the forms that are gonna be filled out for pretty much every single participant. The next that we see down here, tiebreakers, protocol deviations, adverse events, so on, may or may not be filled out depending on the participant. For 2322, you will have this one always filled out. Tiebreakers will depend on whether or not a tiebreaker is needed. Protocol deviations, this is where you're going to log any protocol deviations that may occur. So I'll just show you that form real quick. So let's say you bypassed one of the consents and that didn't get signed at the correct time. If that does ever happen and the participant leaves the clinic and you're not able to get a paper copy signed or something like that, let us know and we will deal with that when the time comes, but hopefully it does not occur. Anyway, this is what the form looks like. So if that happened, you'd click it was a consent issue, you'd put a summary, any effect on patient safety. You can read through this and make sure all of that makes sense, and then you'd hit submit. Adverse events, very similar form. If any adverse events occur, like a nosebleed or fainting, you would log that here. So again, I will let you read through that and make sure everything makes sense. And the last thing here is the coordinator form for corrections. So as I mentioned earlier, once you submit a form, you can no longer go back and edit that form. So if you were to realize that you made an error in any of those forms that were submitted, the only way to correct that error would be through this coordinator form for corrections. And hopefully you will never have to use this for many reasons, but mostly for your own sake. This is a very long and not great form. It's just a conglomerate of all of the coordinator forms into one. And so you'd have to search for the question that you answered incorrectly and put in the correct response here. So like, let's say you put the research test, you entered it as negative when it was actually positive. So you would have to come in and find the research results for standard. So you'll see this is, I even know this form pretty well and I don't know where everything is. Oh, we don't have to find it right now, but so you can see why you do not want to have to use this form. Because not only would you have to enter in the correct information for that question that was entered incorrectly, but you'd also have to remember what follow-up questions might be triggered from that. Because if you put in negative, it's not going to ask you follow-up questions about investigator notification. But if you have to go back and correct it to positive, then you also have to put in, you know, what PI was notified, who notified the PI, when the PI was notified. So again, hopefully you never have to use it, but if you do, this is where you would do it. And if you are having issues with it, you can always reach out to myself or Arjun and we can help you make sure the data is collected properly. Any questions about that? Like I said, it's only been used a small handful of times in the 6 months that we've been doing the study. So the goal is to always obviously put in the correct information the first time so we don't have to use that, but it is there as an emergency backup. All right, so that is what I wanted to show you for now. Do we have any questions at the moment?
So I was wondering if the patient doesn't, if we as researchers put the information in for the patient, how can they then in the end say that they received their test results? Didn't I see there was a button they had to answer for that and they won't have a device to do that with?
So that receiving their research results would occur, that's in their app. So whether they sign up on web or on the mobile platform, they would have to log back into their Eureka account and enter that information in.
But say they aren't capable of entering the Eureka account and we were doing it all for them. They can't go back in and do that.
So you're talking about like maybe
a 90-year-old.
Right. So that's a great question. And let me go back to how you would do that.
And so I guess what happens if eVisit 3 doesn't happen?
What would happen is that the participant would start getting text messages and emails to remind them to go in and finish eVisit 3. Now, if they put in sorry, go ahead.
So if they're elderly and they don't have a cell phone, they're not getting text messages,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe they don't have email. Well, or an email they check regularly.
Right. In which case, probably nothing would really happen. Their email, whatever email they put in, would be getting daily text messages reminding them to go, or daily emails reminding them to go in and fill that information. But
it's not really critical, like on the data team side anyways.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's okay if it's not completed, like overall. I mean, the big story is it's all right if they actually don't.
There's only
complete that
one
part.
question, right? They're not asking the other. Right now, it's just one question. Used to be 3, right? It's just one question.
Right. It's just asking them, did they receive the results? They click yes, and then that's what kind of closes out the study for them.
But the coordinator's already given their result, right? I mean, like.
Oh, they'll definitely get their result either way. That doesn't their standard result.
Yeah.
Right, and they don't ever receive the saliva results. So why even bother asking them if they've received their result? I mean, we know if the coordinator has to call everybody, then, or the physician, and we check that we've done it. And you're saying it's not needed, why are we doing it?
You could fill it out in the coordinator proxy data entry, I thought, Dylan.
Yes, that's what I was just gonna go to. So
Okay.
what the initial question was, what if it's, let's say a 90-year-old person who just is not able to do this on their own? You would come into the coordinator proxy data entry, go to eVisit 3, and right now I can't do it because we've already completed this, but you would just complete that activity for the participant. This will become an issue though if somebody does enter in a correct email address and phone number. They'll get those text messages and they're probably gonna reach out to be like, why do I keep getting all these text messages? And the reason is that they need to go in and complete their third eVisit. So you can either tell them to log in if they're like, I don't want to do that, or I can't do that, I don't know my password, etc. You can just do this for them, and they will not get those text messages anymore.
Is there an easy way for them to reset their password if they are computer savvy and they forgot it?
Yes, I believe so. There's a password reset function. I haven't used that in a while, but yes, there's a way for them to do that.
Okay, so if a person doesn't have a computer or cell phone and the coordinator's doing everything on the iPad or our own laptop, then we can just fill in that question about, did you receive your results, once we've contacted them?
That's a fine by me approach to do it. I don't know if anybody, I don't see any problem with doing it that
Okay,
way.
thanks.
Yeah, and to get to your other question about like, why do we have that there? Because it does seem right now like it's kind of not very important to have that. But there was, so part of this whole Testis platform is that we would have a very easy to use system that could be used across many different studies with many different functionalities. And one of those things was to have follow-up questions be triggered from that survey. So that's part of the reason why it is there. We don't in this study have any follow-up questions to be asked, but just to give you a little reason of why, there might be a little bit of functionality in Testis that is not 100% relevant to your device. And that's part of the reason is that this is supposed to be used for many different devices at the same time and that we could launch very quickly.
So in some of the materials, eVisit number 3 was supposed to have the question like result comprehension, but it looks like you that's out of there now, right? Because the only question for 3 was, did you receive your results?
Right. So for other devices, it's possible that the participant would receive their research result, in which case we would want to collect that information about their comprehension and how, it's not always going to be a straightforward yes or no. Like there might be a more subjective readout.
But maybe I didn't even see those, and maybe I missed it. I didn't even see that question anymore on eVisit 3.
No, it's not, because for this
You
device,
took
they're
it.
not
You
getting.
got rid of it. Perfect. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just, some of the docs that we've shared with you, it's like until it's in, they've made it for the device completely, we don't know exactly which ones are going to be in there. So sorry.
Oh, that's fine. That makes it easier. That's great.
Yeah.
So in the contact attempt form that you had opened, you had filled in information for a first attempt and then hit backspace. Will the form retain all the information that we enter when we
Yes.
return to it?
Yep.
Okay. Does that apply
you can
to
do
all
that
the other forms?
Exactly, yeah. Any form, like if you started to fill out a certain form and realize halfway through that you don't have all that information yet, you can just hit the back button. Everything you've entered will be there for the next time that you come back to that form.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep, great question. Any other questions at the moment? All right, so the next thing that is going to happen is I assume everybody on this call has been added to Slack. If you have not been, please send me an email after this call and I will get you added. But that is where we're going to have most of our day-to-day communications, is in those Slack channels. So there's one for all of the Iowa sites and one for Kansas as well. Those will be distinct sites, so you won't be interacting with each other there. And so what I will do later on today is post links to the admin panel, as well as the participant-facing site where you would enroll a participant. And again, this will all be for the Stage site. So this is practice, where you should be going in and doing all of your practice accounts. And in there, you will create test users and just kind of learn the system, play around with it. I'm also going to send a template of some test users for you to create. So it's kind of like little test scenarios of participants that I've made up that you can go in and create, basically enroll this fake participant from start to finish. We are also going to, I'm going to stop sharing for 1 second, send you this list. So everybody who uses the Eureka Testus platform here is going to need to make 5 test users, and those 5 test users will be ones that I will send you, these like little test scenarios. So everybody will put their name in here. So like, let's say I would put in Dylan and I would put in test user. You just put in their user ID, the Eureka ID, and that can be found right here. Or if you're in the participants tab, it would be right here. So you would put in that number, I forget what it was, something like that. Completed, yes, and then 2 and 3, and then for testing on mobile, we will invite you, you'll have to send us your either Apple ID or Google Play ID, and we will send you an invite to our TestFlight app, which is the test platform for the mobile app. You'll have to download that. So that's here, say TestFlight app downloaded. You'll say yes, and then you'll create your 2 mobile test users. And then once everybody from your site has done this, we will schedule a proficiency call where one person from your team will pretty much do what I did today. You won't have to go through too much detail, but just show us the process of enrolling a participant from start to finish. And then once that is done, then we can invite you to the production site, which is our live site where you would actually be enrolling real participants. Like I said, that site will look the exact same as the Stage site, but it will be actual real participant data. So no practicing or doing test users on that site once you get to that point.
Dylan, can you explain Slack to me? I'm sorry. Like, so that is another form of communication. I clicked the link to activate an account, but I guess I don't understand its purpose.
It's just for very easy communication between a lot of people. It's like an instant messaging system. So rather than emails that only certain people are gonna be part of, like there's gonna be a lot of questions that come up that are gonna be relevant to everybody. So it's a good way for everybody to see what questions are coming up, what issues are being raised. Whereas if we were doing this by email, Eureka would be getting the same questions over and over and over again from multiple people. So it's just a good way to keep everything in one place and have easy communications.
If you have, I guess, is it something I should be checking daily? If there's something really important, you're going to let us know, or we should have that open always. Like it's not in it's not in my daily workflow. Slack is something new to me.
So I guess you don't necessarily need to be checking it every day, but because it's not as frequently that we will be reaching out to you with information, it's more often that you're going to be coming to us with questions. So when you have a question, rather than emailing it to us, go into Slack and post your question there so that everybody in your group can see that question and get the same answer. And when you go in, I think it'd be a good habit if you could try to check it at least once a day to see if there's any updates and things to learn from it. But it probably won't be something that you absolutely need to check every single day.
So,
And-
so Dylan, we have to log into Slack. We don't, I mean, I've never used it either. I mean, I did get signed up for it or whatever, but are we going to get a notification if somebody asks a question and then we go to Slack, or
If you
is
have
this something like,
notifications enabled, yes, it'll send you a notification anytime anybody posts on there.
okay,
So
Right.
I'll just jump in because I have to actually go to another call, but Slack, I was totally new to Slack as well. And I was able to set up like an email notification. So I'm not always in Slack either, but if Dylan Slacks me something or something comes up on Slack that I'm on a channel of, then I get an email saying, here's the Slack. So you can set it to let you know if somebody mentioned you in Slack. If you live in
mean-
email, like mostly I do, it'll just come up in your email so you can see it.
once you have all these questions in Slack, is there a document that's searchable so that if we, missed something 5 days ago that, we can kind of search for key terms or something?
So that's a great question. Let me show you one thing on Slack real quick. So let me bring it over here. So this is the Slack channel, and up here you see this view pinned items. So any really important things, like when I post the links for the stage sites, I'm going to pin it, and then you can just come up here and find these pinned messages. And so right now there's only one, and this is that test us training videos. So yeah, like the kind of important links and important information like that will be pinned. Otherwise, if it's more just like somebody had a question of, hey, I don't know how to use something, that probably will not be pinned to the site, but you can scroll through and find those questions. Does that make sense?
This is not a platform we're used to using, and so it seems if it's the tool that we're supposed to find answers to, and we don't know how to do it, but we'll figure it out.
You can always ask me to. And if
Thank-
I don't know it, then I can always put it in Slack.
Great. All right, so any other questions right now? I do have one more thing I want to follow up on real quick, which
You're muted, Dylan.
sorry about that. I don't know how that happened. So the last thing that I need is to get study managers for each site. So study manager will just kind of be the main point of contact, who will be kind of the lead for the site, and they will also be the one responsible for adding people into the admin panels. So does everybody kind of know who the site manager will be for your sites? Start with Kansas.
Yeah, so this is Ellie. I'm with KUMC and not directly in the clinic, but I am kind of like all admin coordination. So would you prefer to have someone in the Pecani McKinney clinic? Or what, I guess, what are the purposes specifically?
So the main one is this, and we could have more than one study manager. I'll put you down for now. So you'll be the one responsible for adding people into the admin panel.
Okay, sure, that's fine.
And I can show you how to do that.
Okay, no, that's fine. Anything I can help alleviate off the actual practice, I'm trying to help absorb for them, so.
Okay, great.
Jeanette Daly will be for those 4 clinics in Iowa.
Okay. All right.
But we do have 2 other admin people too, like Parang and Megan that are on this call. They'll be admin rights too.
Okay, great. So like I said, the next steps will be to start doing some training on the site and make those test accounts. I will send out all that information via Slack later on today. And then once everybody feels like you're confident in using the Testis platform, we will have that proficiency call. We'll do that one call per site where you'll demonstrate your ability to enroll a participant from start to finish. And then once that occurs, then we will invite you to the production site and we can actually launch and start enrolling live participants. Does that sound good?
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. If anybody does have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. You know, myself, Arjun, and Social, we are here to help you with any and all questions that you have relating to Testis. So please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you very much.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.